with numbers, be they produced by line departments or being produced by Stats SA in the form of official statistics, and the impact in policy analysis. So I'll give an analogy so that we can understand what input, process, output, outcome, and impact indicators are. Let us look at the Department of Housing. The number of houses that they build, they use bags of cement, they have people who work every day, who go to work and build those houses. They pay them salaries. The budgets they spend and the bags of cement are input indicators. The number of houses they complete per day, that is a rate, it's process indicators. And then the number of houses that they finally build. So when we include per day, it's process. But when they have produced the number of houses and we say there are 3,000 houses, it's output. They can show them, they are standing there. That's where we start with the work of official statistics. The outcomes are the number of people who access such housing. So in the census, we as Stats SA usually say that how many people are in formal housing, how many people are in informal housing. These are people who access such people, the outcomes. This is where we focus most of our work as Stats SA, in the form of censuses and surveys. The impact, and if you go across the Limpopo, they sometimes say the impact, is the responsibility of the research fora like yourselves. Because we as Stats SA, we can't talk into the policy space. There's a rule in South Africa. It says when you drive, you must keep left and pass right. So I know how to stay in my lane as statistician general. I stay in the lane of not dabbling into the policy space. I don't comment about policy. I just make numbers available. Because my Sangoma Mhlawiya Lingana, when they drop bones and tell me, what makes you the statistician general? They tell me, Ntambeleni is trying to unseat you. But they won't mention him by name. They will just say someone who is holding your responsibility in the northern parts of the country. So that's my responsibility. My responsibility is to give numbers to the nation and give them so independently and defend the methods. Defending the methods doesn't mean that we should not be challenged. We must be challenged, and we must be challenged by yourselves as researchers. I'm told, so it is that I'm told that this is not the first gathering you meet. I'm told that you have papers you're going to present. I'm also told, that Ntambeleni, when Stats SA produced the census results of 2022, there was a story. Firstly, this was the census in the whole world which had the highest undercount in the whole world. And everyone is wondering, I mean, this man should not be talking here. He should be fired. You have the highest undercount and you are still at your job. So when you do a census, you know you want to count everyone, unlike a sample survey. But because you want to count everyone, and when you are busy counting, you find other people at home, some you don't find them, but you want to count those that are ready to be counted. 1.2 million households refuse to be counted. You don't have time. The law says in the title of the statistician general, there's a general. So you can arrest those who are refusing to be counted. But when you're busy arresting people and you are busy spending time in courts with the 1.2 million households that are refusing to be counted, you are missing time in counting those who are waiting to be counted. Some refused because there was COVID. We could not go into their households. You remember, it was the biggest plunge, a biggest risk we could ever take. And leadership is about taking risks. To conduct a census in the middle of COVID-19. Some said, wait. Some said, give us the money, we'll go and fight COVID. We said, we are going to go and do the census. There was unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. There were issues of floods in Mpumalanga, KwaZulu-Natal and the Northwest. And when we came back, we said our undercount is 31%. I listened to the media one day, and one day the media said, Stats SA has finally admitted that the two professors at the Center of Actuarial Research were right, that they have an undercount of 31%. And I said in the media, it's not like we were caught. We are the ones who released the 31%. So it's not the two professors, it's ourselves. We run a post-enumeration survey. And we compare record for record and say, these are the number of people we have missed. On the day we released the results, the census results, 10th October 2023, we released the undercount as well, the highest being in the Western Cape, the lowest being in the Free State. But people didn't remember. And then the two professors, when they went on, they said, you know, there are problems, we need a recount. Political parties carried the message and said, yeah, now we want a recount. The professor said, no, we didn't say a recount. Political parties said, yeah, you were right, we didn't want a recount. Now let me tell you, the census 2022 is solid. It has the highest undercount in the world, but we reached out to 42 million persons in the 17.4 million households that we went to. And with the undercount, we adjusted it using the post-enumeration survey to 62 million as of the 2nd of February 2022. So it is solid. Yes, we agree that we must be taken to task. But when we know what we are doing, taking us to task means that you give us a chance to explain ourselves. But I have a disappointment for this research forum and other fora in the world. The fact that two professors from the University of Cape Town, who I respect so well, and I must admit I respect them very well, I know them, I've worked with them, they made this assertion, and nobody else took up the issue, including in this research forum, to say, let's unpack the data and hear what it says. And because in South Africa you have population group as white, colored, Indian, Asian, and black African. And the fact that I say anything, I have the responsibility to say anything to the country. The fact that the two professors came from UCT doesn't mean that they would dwarf the University of Limpopo or University of Venda or TUT or Nelson Mandela Bay. But because they come from another population group and they are white, and the black researchers were quiet, it means that we have abdicated the responsibility of knowledge and research to one population section to our country. And it's a travesty. And then now, in the milieu of things, in the last few weeks, when we have listened to the President of the United States giving citizenship to some sections of our society and not talking about those who have suffered for so many years, we say, no, we will complain in the corner. They are there, they have put the message in the public. What is the role of the research forum? What is it that we will put in the public? You must know one thing. You invited me to come and talk to you. You didn't want me to come and tell you lies or half truths. So I only tell truths and only truths. So I like this gathering. But if this gathering will just be good for taking muffins at tea time, and we can't fit in the milieu of things and issues that we need to discuss and debate in our own nation, we must know that it's a lost opportunity. So I've already said I don't get into the policy space, I only talk numbers. The policy, the what? Poverty, unemployment, inequality is for the space of policymakers. Stats SA deals with how to measure methods, standards, and of course, we deal with certification, which I'll talk to later. How many people are in South Africa now? Mid-2024, 1st July, we released the mid-year population estimates, and we said South Africa is sitting at 63 million. Don't worry about the 0. What. Professor Dr. Mabila is not going to ask questions. When he asks you, just say, in 2022, we're 62 million, now we are 63 million. Don't worry about the comma what. The comma what is for those of us who fail all courses in first year and have to repeat. Where are our people? 25% of those are in Gauteng, 15.9 million, followed by KwaZulu-Natal, 19.5%, 12.3 million, followed by Western Cape, sitting at 12%, Eastern Cape, Limpopo at 6.4%, accounting for 10.2%, all the way to the Northern Cape at 1.4 million, sitting at 2.2%. KwaZulu Natal was the most populous province. And they asked me, they called me and said, Maluleke, we are robbed. I mean, we have polygamy here in KwaZulu Natal. Man, in her lifetime, we don't talk about men because men are not a reliable indicator of fertility. If you don't believe me, wait until you attend their funerals and you learn how many children they have had in their lifetime. Women, whether the children come from different fathers, stay with their children throughout their life. So fertility is highest in Limpopo. So the dotted line that you see, it's a national average. Those that are below the national average of 2.41 are Mpumalanga, Free State, Western Cape, and Gauteng. Anyone who sits below 2.1 as fertility, any country, any province, they have reached what we call replacement. So if me and my wife have 2 children, we haven't done anything to contribute to the population because we have simply replaced ourselves. 2 people gave birth to 2 people, replaced themselves. So in KwaZulu-Natal, they asked me, but we have polygamy. We don't use men, we use every woman as an entity. So the fertility for KwaZulu-Natal is 2.58 per woman. Live births. Limpopo and the Eastern Cape have the highest. So Premier Lesufi asks me, but why, SG, do I have the lowest fertility at 1.89? Why? And I say, Premier, do you want the truth? And he says, yes. And I say, Premier, you lead a province of very lazy people. They don't have children, they are lazy. Now, let us look at the population structure of Limpopo versus that one of Gauteng. Look, at the bottom on the left, you see a lot of children. And in the middle, around ages 24, you see an inner bulge. and you see an increase later, and you see the inner bulge on the right-hand side as well in Gauteng. Those are the effects of HIV, that was the deaths and lower fertility that were there during HIV. That is number one. But number two is people in Limpopo are leaving. And where do they leave to? I will come to that. But let's start by saying that Limpopo has the highest number of children. Look on the left. I will sometimes guide you by telling you which side to look in terms of the color. And I'll sometimes tell you left, right, like my teacher who taught me arithmetic. When the school inspectors came and they wanted to know whether he's teaching right and he's training his students, his learners, he used to say, if you know the answer, raise your right hand when I ask you. If you don't know the answer, raise the left hand. And he would only point those with right hands, and the inspectors were thinking, this teacher is teaching a lot. So you can see at the top on the left-hand side, there's a red dot there. Limpopo has the highest number of children, followed by the Eastern Cape. Whereas the young people and adults, look at Eastern Cape and Limpopo, they don't even reach the national average, the dotted line. The highest are in Gauteng because that's where they work. Followed by the Western Cape and a bit of Mpumalanga and the Northwest. And the elderly on the right-hand side, you can see the red dot, are in the Eastern Cape. So Limpopo and the Eastern Cape create higher dependencies because they have the young and the old. Program director, I'm sweating. It's hot here. Telling the truth is tough. Now, I have to request your permission to take off my jacket. And I'm sorry if there are people that I will disappoint by only taking the jacket off. I know since I'm a son from Limpopo, you would have wanted me to take more to see if we can increase the fertility, but I'm afraid this is how far I will take it. So now, let us look at Limpopo, for example, in terms of education. We are saying that those with no schooling coming from the left-hand side continue to be dropping. In 1996, they were sitting at 36.4%. They are now sitting at 14.2%. So we are saying that 3 out of 10 persons aged 20 years and above now have grade 12. As we can see, the second bars, how do I point? Here, 31%. So we have dropped a lot in no schooling. We continue to drop in some areas, but grade 12 we are increasing. But higher than grade 12, we don't see much movement. The movement is slow. Look at the steep for those who have grade 12. From here to here, it's high. But here we are not moving. So what is the role of the research forum? In increasing the space for learning. In other countries, when universities must be established, they listen to those who research in the policy space. Because if we don't encourage for more places of higher learning to be established, private institutions of higher learning will come. And those with money will push prices for education, and those that are in the public space, we know how much we are highly subsidized by the state. So now, I want us to talk about, in terms of the share of the economy. We know that Limpopo shares about 10% of the share of population nationally. But look, economy 7.7. So it means that the population is much more higher than the share of the economy. If we were to unpack the per capita GDP, the Eastern Cape and Limpopo have the lowest per capita GDP. And this brings us to something else, which I will not bring in the form of slides, but I'll bring in the form of my talk. So let us look at income. We have just released the results of the income and expenditure survey. We are saying in 2006, the salaries, income, not salaries, income includes salaries from work, from imputed rent of our own or paid up houses, from where we rent, as well as pensions and stockfells and the like, was sitting at 75,000. Ntambeleni, if I miss the numbers, you will remind me, because now I'm recalling them by head. And by 2023, the average income was sitting at 204,000 rands. About 204,000 rand, 367 possibly. So we have increased, but that's the national average. The highest is in the Western Cape, 340,000, followed by Gauteng at 250,000, all the way to Limpopo. Limpopo has the lowest income at 128,000. So it means Limpopo is sitting at about a third of what the Western Cape is earning as income, household income. Now, Limpopo is followed by the Eastern Cape in the earnings. Now, when you have Limpopo and the Eastern Cape having the highest fertility, and they have the lowest income, and they rely on grants because the salaries are 52% of what comes from work in our country, according to the General Household Survey nationally. But for Limpopo and the Eastern Cape, it's below 50% coming from salaries. So we rely more on grants, remittances, pensions, and the likes. And in this regard, as we rely more on those, when we have the highest fertility and we have these children at the bottom, what will happen? We are going to miss the demographic dividend. A demographic dividend is when population growth leads, driven by two things. While it's growing, still with lower fertility and lower mortality, leads to higher economic outcomes. Now, in our case, our fertility is high in Limpopo. Our economic muscle is not much. We have the lowest household income. And our economy share is 7.2%. So if our fertility is high, it means our population growth is still driven by fertility, and it's not low. And since our economic muscle is not strong, it means that we will miss out on the demographic dividend. It means that the savings that we are going to make will not make a difference on the per capita income. Look, per capita income. Look at the Eastern Cape and Limpopo, right at the bottom. Eastern Cape having the lowest per capita income by 2022, followed by Limpopo. And these are the two provinces that have the highest fertility. So what will happen to those children that are being born? How will they know, Dr. Mabila, that we once existed and met here in the place of Ekupumuleni where King Zilikazi once settled without a cell phone? How will they know? Look at Limpopo. Look at the people living on the left-hand side. Where do they go to? Gauteng. On the left-hand side, look at the bulge leaving Limpopo. Going to Gauteng is the biggest. So young people aged 15 years, 16, 17, they leave Limpopo to go to Gauteng to search for opportunities for education. We say we have enough universities in Limpopo. I'm saying no. They are leaving. What is it that will tell policymakers to make sure that they stay in our province to learn in our province? And for them to learn, it means that we must attract the best academics. What is it that will make an academic leave the University of Cape Town or leave the University of Stellenbosch to come and establish themselves in Limpopo? What is it? If you don't believe me that people leave Limpopo to go to Gauteng, look at the person who's talking to you now as the best form of evidence. Look at those who come to Limpopo on the right-hand side. They come from Gauteng and outside South Africa. But look at the bigger, the chunk on the left of those who are going out, and look at those who are coming back to Limpopo. Only a paltry. So the point is that they are not coming back. They leave at ages 15 years. They arrive in Gauteng. They finish schooling. They get jobs in Gauteng. And then when they get jobs, they get married there. They start family. So what is it that this research forum will do to assist the government, to assist industry captains, to make sure that they choose Limpopo as the investment destination? Otherwise, the people that we see on the right-hand side, who we say are coming back to Limpopo, are the elderly who are retiring from their work as migrant laborers in Gauteng, and they are coming back home to overload the health system and to die. It's the same like in the Eastern Cape. They leave to the Western Cape and go back to the Eastern Cape as elderly people. Program director, I think you had said I must speak from a certain time, 10:40 to 11:20, is that right? And you said that I must not exceed my time. I think it's not yet 11:20. I started before 10:40. So I think I've already exhausted my talk. Should I stop? I still have more to talk. Should I stop? Should I stop? You see, program director, by popular vote, I've been returned back to the presentation, not to office. Okay, let us look at grants and income. We're going to talk about that. I've already spoken about this slide. So, okay. I've already spoken about this slide. Look at the income of Western Cape and Gauteng. They are the highest. Look at the 128 that I was talking about Limpopo. So I will not repeat this one. But the grants, let us not think they are not helping our people. The grants are actually saving a lot of people coming out of hunger. They have actually, we can see during COVID, this is COVID time. The spikes at personal level and at household level, at individual level and at household level. Look at the salaries for Limpopo. Those are salaries. Look at the grants for Limpopo and the Eastern Cape. They are the biggest. Look at the Western Cape. Grants are small in Gauteng. Look at remittances, the money that we send. So now, all of us here send money to our parents, whether we are in Gauteng, Western Cape, or from Nelson Mandela Bay. We send money to our parents. So when the money arrives in Toyando, Giani, Malamlele, home, our mothers and fathers and uncles take it. It arrives today, it tells them on their phone. My mother tells me she even knows how to read it, that it has arrived. She can't read a lot of WhatsApp or messages, but when money arrives, she knows. She will call and say it has arrived. The following morning, she wakes up, she goes to Pick and Pay. She buys all the supplies she needs. A day later, Pick and Pay takes the money, banks it in Johannesburg. So money arrives in the village from Gauteng to secure services and goes back to Gauteng. It hasn't circulated. What is it as a research forum that we will raise that money must circulate in the locality? Because if a currency doesn't circulate at least 7 times in any neighborhood, it will not make any impact. Money comes from Gauteng and goes back to Gauteng. That's why Gauteng has a largest share on the economy. Let us look at labor. We are saying that out of the 63 million people now, 41.4 million people are in the working age, 15 to 64 years. Those that are in the labor force, either employed or unemployed, are 25 million. 16.9 million on the left-hand side in the blue color are employed. The red color are those that are unemployed, 8 million actively looking for employment. When the statistician general says 32.1% of the people in South Africa are unemployed, we are talking about the 8 million that is actively looking for employment day in and day out. We don't include yet the discouraged work seekers, 3.4 million in the gray color, the darker gray. Now, when we come and take the 8 million that are unemployed in red, plus 3.4 million who are discouraged work seekers in the darker gray color, plus another 800,000 who are here, who didn't look for employment, but not because they were discouraged, but if employment came, they would have taken it. We come to the expanded unemployment rate of 41.6%. That is 12.2 million people. That is the serious issue of our country. 12.2 million are not employed. Of people who qualify for work. You will ask me, but this man, he includes people, he says working age is 15 to 64 years, they are supposed to be at school. When we come and ask them, are you students? And they say, yes, we put them here in the not economically active. I get asked, why do you include children of 15 years? I don't make the laws. If you go to the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, Section 43 says it is illegal to hire a child younger than 15 years. It's not me, it's our parliament. If parliament changes the laws, I'll change the counting. Sometimes I get called in parliament and they ask me, why do we include children of 15 years? And I say, change the laws. But it worries me when those who make the laws don't know what the law is saying. What is the role of the research forum? To make sure that those who make the laws live by the laws and understand what the laws are saying. What is the role? So our role is not only to publish papers that will include numbers. Our role is to look at the social aspects, the religious aspects, everything that has to do about life. At Stetese, when you are born, we are there. Because we have to tell South Africans how many children are born. Live births, recorded live births, 1.1 million. In Limpopo, the highest surnames are Loichauke and Maluleke. Those are the most highest popular surnames. Ntambelen will confirm that. And it's not because we put Maluleke, because I'm statistician general. It's because fertility is high in Limpopo. Now, after that, when you start school, we are there. We have to tell South Africans how many learners are at school. When you finish and you go to work, we are there. When you don't find work, we have to tell South Africans who is unemployed. When you work, we have to tell South Africans where you work, in which sector of the economy. Whether it's in finance, agriculture, mining, we have to tell them. We even have to tell South Africans which sector is not performing. We ask every question. So when you go at night and you think your partner doesn't know, and you go and do things, we know. Because in the demographic and health survey, we have to tell South Africans who has had a liaison with a person outside their regular partner, so that we can measure health behaviors. And we are very happy that people respond honestly. That is why we don't break confidentiality. That is why when we collect data, we seal it. So one of the challenges of the research forum is, what are the ethics of research? When you collect data and you ask people, and they give you sensitive information about their lives, about their incomes, about everything, about what they do when the sun has set, they must not hear it on the other side of the river. When they hear it, they won't give you the data. When they know, it's not about what your field workers will keep private. It's also about your ICT systems. How solid are they? In Canada, a dating website was once broken some years ago with the names of the people, the credit card details, and all the identifiers. People went home to start confessing. Some even confessed before they even sinned. The question is, it means you must have systems that are not easily broken. So now, let's come back to Limpopo. Limpopo, out of the 16.9 million, we only hire 1.6 million. Out of the 8 million, only 10% of those that nationally are unemployed are found in Limpopo. We have 500,000 discouraged work seekers. So our unemployment rate is sitting at 32.6%. As we can see, look at the unemployment rate for Limpopo, there it is. But there's a catch. Let us not look at the lighter color and be happy. The gray color says our expanded unemployment rate jumps to 46.3%. It's because we are far away from places where people must get jobs. Our people in Limpopo are far away from places of work. What it says is that the spatial arrangements of apartheid are still intact in South Africa. What is it that the research forum will do to break down the shackles of apartheid and change our country so that people, when they look at Limpopo, find it a better place to settle in? When people look at the Nelson Mandela Bay, say we have home to settle. When people look at Northwest, they have a place to settle. The president announced that he would want to see a train rolling from Musina all the way to Pretoria, Gauteng, Joburg. We have the Makado Musina economic, special economic zone. What is our role? What is our role? Is our role to be silent and look at it? Is our role to be silent and look at trains come across? What is our role? What is our role in empowering entrepreneurs that will emerge, not only from Limpopo, from South Africa? Is our role going to create a consumerist society that buys iPhones, Samsung from other countries, laptops from other countries? When will we have manufacturing happening in Limpopo? What is the role of the research forum? Any color, this color that you see, pink, and the color red, look at the Eastern Cape, for example. The color red or dark red is flying around the color pink. It means the unemployment in the Eastern Cape has always been higher than national average. Look at Limpopo. It started well here. Limpopo here. It was inside the national average. It was lower than the national average. But now it's catching up with the national average. And one day it might reach higher, like the Eastern Cape. Look at the Western Cape. It's within the pink color. So look at the University of Cape Town. Look at the University of Stellenbosch. They have researchers. They have their research gatherings. They meet the professors there. They meet with the government of the Western Cape. They assist them. What is the role of the universities in our province, Limpopo, in Mpumalanga, in the Northwest, in the Eastern Cape, in the Northern Cape? Are we going to sit in the margins of society and always questions? Are we going to only write papers that question what has happened rather than recommend what should happen? They want me to finish. They say I must stop. Now, agriculture. I'm told agriculture hires only 1.1 million out of the between 890,000 to 1.1 million. I hear that we need to have agriculture. But let me mention that the biggest industry is finance. It's not banks. Banks in finance account for 40%. It's banks, insurance companies, banks and insurance companies, it's 40%. The others come from real estate, housing. The others come from consultancies. How many of us will emerge here and beyond here together with the students that we are leading as powerful researchers, Dr. Mabila, in the nation, in the world? And not only researchers that publish papers, but who publish papers and make money out of that. And be consultants in the world. Personal services account for 16%. Education and health, most of us here go to the private sector, health facilities and education. Are you coming to stop me, madam? Thank you. Should I stop? Should I stop? Okay, let me finish. She was coming to remind me that I must finish. So look, let us look at agriculture, for example. This is how it's skewed in our country. Agriculture is biggest in Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. Look at provinces like Limpopo. Yet we have large tracts of land in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Northwest, everywhere. What is it that we will do to make a difference? In Limpopo, agriculture production drives only 3.3% of economic activity. The highest being in the Northern Cape, followed by the Free State. Let us look at employment. It accounts for 10% in Limpopo. So we can see that it's hiring more people. So it means we must give it a drive and some impetus to drive it. Because if we don't do, it has more people it's hiring. It's low entry. Low entry, you don't need a lot of skills. To just go and get oranges out of a tree, you don't need a lot of skills. Let's look at post-COVID. I want to come here. Or before I come here, look at the share of agriculture in employment. Now it's in Limpopo and the Western Cape, because the KwaZulu-Natal economy has been diversified. In Limpopo, post-COVID, Limpopo has recovered from COVID. Look at where we are in terms of industries that are higher than COVID, equal or higher. It's agriculture, transport, finance, personal services, and general government. And these are the ones that we must also continue advancing. While we have recovered from COVID, but while we are recovering from COVID, our share hasn't recovered from pre-COVID. Gauteng, Limpopo, and the Free State are lagging behind. The Northwest is moving fast. There's mining there. Let us look at the role of agriculture in Limpopo at household level. 38.2% of households on the left-hand side gray were involved in agriculture. Here, what are they engaged in agriculture for? Look, largely, it's more for a main source of income, little. In Limpopo, the darker color after the gray, 3.9%, it's main source of agriculture. So people in Limpopo households are highly involved in agriculture, but they just use it as an extra source of food. So why are you highly engaged in agriculture? Look at Mpumalanga, it follows. There's an MMC with us here. Look at the Eastern Cape. But look at our share from Mpumalanga for main source. In Mpumalanga and the Eastern Cape, they produce even a lot more higher to eat. So in Limpopo, they produce and they dry out and they go to buy to the shop, yet they're highly engaged in agriculture. Look at the yellow color, which must talk about extra source of income. Or main source, the brown color. Look at Limpopo. Look at Mpumalanga in the Eastern Cape. Look at the Western Cape, for example, right at the bottom. The brown color, main source of income. At household level, I'm not talking at commercial level, at household level. What you do at home. Towards the future of technology, I'm about to conclude. Look at penetration of cell phones. Gray color 2011, we're sitting at 32.3% in South Africa. Now we are sitting at 92.1% with cell phones. What is it that we'll do? People have televisions, radios are now declining. Landlines have declined at the bottom. They were bigger, 24% at the bottom. Now they are now sitting at 5.8%. What is it that we'll do as we increase? I will skip the rest of this, come here, because the program director wants me to finish. What is it that we'll do using our numbers when we have done our research? For the National Development Planning, all the way to Sustainable Development Goals on the right-hand side, all the way to IDPs at municipalities, we must support our municipalities. I co-chair the Global Working Group, the United Nations Global Working Group on Big Data. I also co-chair the International Forum on the total official support for sustainable development in the world. The issues we talk about there is the future of ICT and how we'll make it powerful. And when we have data, we need to have integrity, accessibility, timeliness. We need to have accuracy, relevance, interpretability, comparability, methodological soundness, and we must publish our methods. Because we must not only produce poor numbers and research, we must not have questionable statistics and research. We must have acceptable statistics, because when it's quality statistics, the statistician general can put the stamp. Only the statistician general in South Africa can put a stamp that is official statistics. Only when it's quality statistics. If it's not, it will remain at a poor level. And the benefits is that we are independent. I work under Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni in the presidency. When I release numbers, I don't go and brief the minister first. Many of us here have a responsibility of briefing our political heads. Tambeleni knows. I release the numbers, and the president and the minister see them the first time you see them. And it's done out of respect for the laws of the Republic of South Africa. So it's a big responsibility they give us. Because when we don't do that, our numbers and our research will not be driven by empirical evidence. It will be driven by political ideology, unethical behavior, anecdotes and arbitrariness, and power influence. Sometimes even from the same political party, people fight about who must go more to the left or to the right. Numbers and research must never be attacked when it's solid. That is why we need empirical evidence. And statistics alone cannot produce all the numbers. We need to work together so that we can qualify our numbers into official statistics. This slide, program director says, Ndihela kwala. Those who know in this language will know when I was young, growing up in the village, we used to write letters for our mothers who were writing letters to our fathers in migrant centers. Mother and father could not finish a letter with, I love you, my husband, or I miss you, because we were their scribes. We were not supposed to hear our mothers telling our fathers, I love you or I miss you. Because if we had that, we were going to go deaf according to the village legend. And we were going to go blind if we wrote those words down on behalf of our mothers. So mother and father had to find a standard way to say Ndihela kwala. In Tshivenda, they would say Ndifelela hanef. In Sepedi, they would say Kifetsa honamo. In Setswana, they would say Kifetsa honafa. In Sesotho sa Borwa, they would say Kaditumediso na watsena ditaba. In isiNdebele, they would say ngiyathokoza. In isiSwati, they would say amangente angnawo bongwane. And indeed, in isiXhosa, they would say ngicela khona apha ngomkhulu umbuliso. In English and Afrikaans, they would say I love you. Ek lief vir jou. I miss you. Because they were empowered, they could read and write. Never, and never again, Mandela once said, should we allow any section of our society, be it women, children, poor, old, the empowered, disempowered, black or white, be disadvantaged because they cannot read and write? They can't even express themselves on issues that matter the most to their hearts, like love, that they have to say Ndihela kwala. When we are there and we call ourselves a research forum, what impact will we make? Because in isiZulu, when they finish the letter, they would say, Amaningang now. So program director, Naam, Amaning ang now. I finish here, I thank you. The next slide is blank, by the way. Yes, it is blank. Program director. I'm sorry, I never had enough time to prepare for a shorter input in the keynote. I thank you.
Now we know who the real comedian is. I mean, the real actor and celebrity. Now we know. Or perhaps we know where some of us took from. This dancer had his dancing shoes on. And thank you for dancing beautifully, Mr. Statistician General. That was indeed a rendition of strings of insights, and you did that in baritone. We've been sitting for quite a long time, but the program says we should start with a panel discussion. And people could be pressed somehow, so I'm just trying to see if I can allow the 10 minutes for break and then we do panel discussion, or we keep the program this way. But let me see, I don't want to disturb the program, because if we go out, sometimes we take longer to come back and we may mess up with the program. Allow 5 minutes? Allow 5 minutes? Just pleading that let it be 5 minutes and we should be back in 5. Thank you. Let's take that short break.